gente, tudo bem? Como vão? Bom dia. Vou dar um avisinho aqui antes, a gente vai fazer esse painel em inglês, então vocês todos aí já têm um sistema de tradução simultânea através de AI, então quem precisar ligar, liguem aí. And okay, let's do that. So I'm Isabella, this is Shadow, Thiago, and KG. First, I would like you guys to introduce yourselves. I know that he spoke a little bit about who you guys are, but I think nothing better than you guys to introduce yourselves.
Okay, cool. So I am Kgothatso Ngako, and I am the catalyst / CEO of Machankura, which is like a USSD service similar to M-Pesa or any other mobile money payment, but specifically focused on Bitcoin and giving people the ability to send and receive Bitcoin without an internet-connected device or even a smartphone. So as long as they have a feature phone with a mobile cellular connection, that's what we do.
Hello everyone, I'm Shadows. I'm working with product designer at BIPA, developing solutions that will help the daily use of Bitcoin in the Brazilian people. So I also contribute with some open source projects in the ecosystem of Bitcoin, like seed signers and Club Bitcoin and others kind.
Hello everybody, so my name is Gustavo Lopes. Nowadays I work at Twitter, that is a out-custody wallet that can provide the Pix integration. So you can receive Pix and send Pix to whenever you want, pay billets and go cash out on ATMs using Bitcoin all days. And as it says about me, earlier I have been working on this solution like almost 2 years and working with Rossello 4 years already.
Okay, great. So let's start with the question. So the first thing, the first initial challenge that we're going to talk about is what is the main challenge people face when starting to use Bitcoin in daily transactions and in day-to-day use?
I can go first. I think the most difficult about the daily transactions is because Bitcoin is a new financial system, so you have a lot of new kinds of things that you need to know and understand to make transactions, and new things can be feared for new people. So the people need to understand more about private keys, public keys, the blockchain, like fees and this stuff. And it's be difficult for new people and no technical people. I think that's it.
In my opinion, a controversial maybe, but to study Bitcoin and understand what's going on a transaction can be a daily, how can I say, a daily demand that the people don't understand from the exploiters itself. Because when I do a transaction that I understand how it goes on blockchain or on stream, and this goes. But a new person, mainly the most part, don't understand how it goes on the exploiter, what I'm doing the exploiter, so my hashes and the public key and the private key. To understand that and understand a lot of numbers for new people can be really controversial and really harsh.
Well, yeah, so on our side, I think it's a thing that actually you guys as Teco tackle, right? Which is where do newcomers get their Bitcoin, right? And a lot of normal people are really not used to the exchange interface, and what companies like Azteco do with a pure focus on consumer Bitcoin makes what we do quite easy, because then we could target a person who's really not in the tech space, who's not on the internet, and just tell them, yo, go to the corner store and you'll be able to buy Bitcoin, right? And then from there, we just make it easier from that point where they are able to use their mobile cellular interface to acquire the first Bitcoin, and also we make it easy for them to spend their first Bitcoin in a fashion that seems similar to everything else that they do on a day-to-day basis.
Great. I'm going to do a follow-up question on that, and I'm going to tackle a little bit on what KG said. Do you guys really think that people need to know exactly how the technical space works to adopt Bitcoin? Or it can be like the internet, where a lot of people don't know what goes on in the process, but people use it because it solved an issue for them?
Okay. I think the Bitcoin is a free universe, so I think for a more sovereign use, you need to understand the technical stuff to run a node and check your transaction on Explorer. But if you are, uh, if you don't really, you don't want to be a sovereign people, you can use some services like BIPA to transaction Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, and use it without understand technical stuffs.
I think the technical part can be really solved like with companies like BIPA, Truther, and him. But if you want to get the all potential that Bitcoin has, you need to understand this technical part because Bitcoin has a lot of potential, and if you don't study and you don't get the real knowledge, you most of the times you're going to just use on the hype, and you don't will really get what Bitcoin is about it.
Well, I think as more and more people start using Bitcoin, ultimately the technicalities will fade away into the background in the same fashion that you don't have to be a car mechanic to drive a car. Right? You do need to know how an engine works to be a car mechanic, but if you just want to drive a car on a day-to-day basis, all you need to know is how to shift it into gear if you're driving manual or how to start the car if you're driving automatic. And yeah, so I think in the future we're going to start seeing better Bitcoin wallets, and I think they're coming out with like Phoenix Wallet, even with Beeper, because they do have a Bitcoin wallet. I personally don't see a reason why somebody couldn't implement something as usable as Beeper in a self-custodial fashion. And of course, the car mechanics would know how it would work, but the normal users wouldn't care. They would just say, okay, I want to make a transaction, and then the wallet will take it over for them from that point. And with more people adopting Bitcoin, I think we're going to start seeing that on a regular.
Okay, great. Let's talk now a little bit about the ease of use. So how we can make Bitcoin more intuitive to people who are not tech savvy. So as we were talking about people that are day-to-day users that don't know necessarily about technical stuff, how we can make the interfaces a little bit softer and lighter to be used.
So I think one solution that we developed and BIPA developed also was integrating on the traditional financial system. I think this is the first step. Then later that, as I think, when the banks and all these institutional people adopt it and use it and has blockchain transactions, it's going to be easier to do that, the UX and the experience from the user, because he will already have an integration on the traditional system that he is already used to. So we first got the first step, integrating peaks. So then when the users got experience and the banks got the experience, so we can develop a good experience on the blockchain that the user can have.
Yeah, I think one area we looked at is, and it's a weird thing to say to your question, right? But I think giving users like a monthly statement in a similar fashion that they get a monthly statement from their bank account, and then having a button that they could press to say, make it fiat, right? Yes, it's a Bitcoin wallet, but this person is going to present the Bitcoin statement to maybe a Visa application, and then we just need to show the day-to-day changes in the Bitcoin price as if it's an interest earned or interest lost or something like that, just so the people at the Visa office can see in fiat terms, oh, you have this much and you spend this much on a month-to-month basis from your Bitcoin wallet as if it's a bank account. They don't need to know that is a Bitcoin wallet. And banking statements are not verifiable anyway, and so Bitcoin wallets, yes, they are verifiable, but that part of it doesn't need to be verifiable. And for me, what I'd like to see is people living on Bitcoin on a day-to-day basis, and I feel like things like this would bridge the gap a little more, and it's a small non-technical change that could help somebody who's living on a Bitcoin standard actually do day-to-day things like apply for a visa or apply for a job or something like that.
Okay, so that's great, guys. So let's talk a little bit about interactions with local currencies. How you guys think that Bitcoin's price volatility impacts in the Bitcoin adoption for everyday purchases, and what can be done to mitigate these effects?
Okay. Most of our users are based in Africa, right? A lot of the African currencies are performing way worse than Bitcoin. Even when Bitcoin is going down, the Nigerian naira is going lower, the South African rand is going lower, the Kenyan shilling is having a dramatic outburst. So what we usually see is people also see that oh, okay, Bitcoin is going down, but as compared to the local currency, is not as bad. And a lot of people in Africa, whether they're using the Malawi shilling or the Zambian kwacha, they are okay with Bitcoin. But at the same time, when the Bitcoin price goes up, the interest is higher than ever, right? So it makes onboarding new users way easier. So we almost don't need to implement any new mechanism for most of Africa, even when the Bitcoin price is low, because most of the time it's sideways, and against an African currency, sideways is actually going up. And yeah, so we just need to figure out what the message should sound like when the Bitcoin price or the bear market is happening, especially for countries with weaker currencies like most of Africa.
Yeah, I agree. The volatility of Bitcoin is a hurt. I think that nobody wants to lose money. So I think Beeple and Trutter has a good job in bringing some stable coins for the normal people to protect with the bear markets and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree with him because we agree on, here in Brazil, a lot of people use real. It's not as this value as African currency. So here in Brazil, everybody use real mainly. But you have the instantly payment, like the instant exchange. When I get the button, is really helpful already. And we already do that in the self-custodial wallet, and people already do that. So I think here in Brazil, the adoption is going to be like that, because a lot of people is not going to drop hell soon.
Okay, great. I want to go a bit on the security of this. So what security practices you guys see, especially in the Brazilian markets where a lot of people are also in Machankura and in South Africa in general? What are the security practices that should be adopted to ensure that Bitcoin daily use is safe and accessible to everyone?
I think the first step, as I said, is to get a better UX and UI from the exploiters, because it's going to be easier to do the rest, to search on the transactions and go through and like see if it's a scam or money laundry and this stuff. So I think the first step is going to make this technology, the exploiter, easier to understand and easier to be traceable.
Yeah, I think the most difficult part of Bitcoin is make the custod. You only need to keep 12 words, but it's really hard to do in the real world. And I would like to see more things improve the usability of the custod, like FabMint, and I think it's be helpful to keep your Bitcoin secure without be a technical person.
Yeah, I think we are in very interesting times because there's new wallets like BitKey that are actually rolling out very interesting ideas where the user doesn't even get the seed phrase but has a mechanism to recover their funds. And even with us, where as a custodial service, we look at that and we're like, wait, so if we don't give the user their seed phrase, but we give them a recovery mechanism, as long as we can ensure that that recovery mechanism is secure, it's as good as self-custody, even though the primary means of interfacing is through the service, right? And yeah, so those are things we've thought about, but of course, this multisig is a great one. We've used multisig for our on-chain spends, and we would like to actually see more multisigs on Lightning wallets as well. Where yes, Lightning wallets is a hot wallet, but you don't just get access to one key and then you're able to spend or drain the entire wallet. So I think over time we will start seeing something built out there, but I think a lot of the stuff that's happening in hardware wallets is quite interesting and to see, and I think services are going to apply some of that. And I think you guys as Teco are applying the best option, which is never hold your users Bitcoin, and the user gets a voucher and they just redeem the Bitcoin and then you send it through, and that's the most secure way of doing it. And the touch point is what? Maybe a few minutes if it's on-chain, a few seconds if it's Lightning. So yeah, sadly, not everyone could do that. So, but I think we're really seeing a lot of interesting projects come out in the hardware wallet space that could be applied for services to make the Bitcoins way more secure than they are now.
Great. So now I want to talk a little about merchant adoptions. I know we're talking a lot about adopting in general, and I think it's something that in South Africa it's a little bit more developed than here. But what do you guys think that can be done to encourage more merchants and establishments to accept Bitcoin and that as a payment method? Actually, Shadow, you've been to Rolante recently, right? So if you can talk a little bit more about what you saw there, what's the experience like? I think they're a great example of people that are doing that. So yeah.
Okay. Rolante is a very curious place because in there has a circle economic systems, like the people that receive Bitcoin in our merchants spend Bitcoin in the older merchants, so they never get a swap with real or other currencies, only use Bitcoin. And the most of the commerciants already know how to do this, and some of the improvements that I can see is like tools that helping merchants to integrate with of the financial systems, like with developing like tax reports and this stuff. The most of merchants don't implement the receive of Bitcoin because that fear of the government.
I think for merchants it's going to be like tricky mainly due to government and legal regulations that they need to follow. So the first step I think we need to get is like a specialized company that understand and see the benefits and show the merchant how to do it, the tax, and how is most need to be done, and how is going to be profitable to him to be like that, and have as he said, tool that easy to convert Bitcoins from real as fast as can be, still with his custody.
Yeah, I think I agree with both Shadow and Gustavo, because the other circular economy is in Jericoacoara with prior Bitcoin, and they have, I think, both elements. One, a champion who is driving the merchants to adopt Bitcoin in the form of Fernando, who runs prior Bitcoin, and tools to allow them to accept that Bitcoin, which is like BTC Pay Server, right? One of the best tools you could ever use as a merchant to accept Bitcoin. But as you said, one of the missing pieces is like, how do you then run your normal business practices when you accept in Bitcoin, because you're still going to have to do accounting. Even if, let's say, the tax, that's a separate discussion, there's really no tools that help you do easy accounting if you've accepted Bitcoin and exporting that into QuickBooks. A lot of people have cried about not having the Bitcoin option in QuickBooks or SAT or whatever else. And yeah, I think that's a very solvable thing with tools. And in South Africa, how they did it, one of the biggest integrations is the Pick n Pay, which is a grocery store in South Africa. How they did it is the company accepts Bitcoin, but then settles the bill in rands, right? So grocery store is then able to continue doing their accounting in rands or the Rio, if it was Brazil, and the user is the one who paid the Bitcoin, and the payment processor is like the middleman that does the conversion, right? And since it's Lightning, actually they've tried this before with on-chain a few years ago before Lightning existed, and the on-chain settlement times and Bitcoin's volatility made that hard, but with Lightning, that conversion is instant, and the middleman or the payment processor can ensure that the shop and the grocery store always get the exact amount of Bitcoin required to settle the bill, and then the payment processor decides what to do with the Bitcoin or figures out the accounting. And now the grocery store doesn't have to figure out the accounting or taxes or whatever else. And with this, payment processor can onboard multiple merchants, and those merchants can accept Bitcoin but still continue business as usual without needing to hire new staff to do the accounting and stuff like that. But ultimately, what I see is a tool that kind of solves all of that, so that merchants don't have to worry. And yeah.
Great. So now I want to dive in a bit of a different but same topic from what we're saying. It's about education. I think all the companies that are here in Machancura and even Aseco, we do that a lot together, but also BIPA and Truther. You guys are big on education on different systems and actually talking to the consumer quite a lot. And what role do you think that education plays in promoting Bitcoin daily use and Bitcoin use in general for different purposes? And what are the best strategies that you guys see to reach new users in all the different sectors and all the different positions you guys had here? But in your companies and in your positions, your projects, what do you guys see that is important to educate the consumer about, and how you guys do that?
I think the education is the main point to have the adoption from Bitcoin. Not only our users, that our support is 24/7 to help the education, help to understand, but have tutorials, have PDFs explaining everything about the app and about the Bitcoin. And also, I have been on a campaign that go to universities and teach the students that are going to get into the market and get now the access to that, and educate from the beginning, educate from the ground, because if the ground is going to be solid, the future is going to be easier to get the knowledge. And I think the future and the people from the future, the next generation, is going to have the adoption from Bitcoin mostly almost on the daily basis due to education. I think education is going to be the main tool to help Bitcoin get mainstream.
Yeah. I think education is so important because without education we can do nothing. So at BIPA we have a lot of efforts to make educational stuff like podcasts, reports, social media posts, educating about all the ecosystem of Bitcoin, like economy, technical stuffs, and how to bring your financial life more safely. So yeah, we also have BIPA talks to bring some place and become possible to people change information and change knowledge about Bitcoin.
Yeah, so education for us is a weird topic, right? Because even like with Exonomia, which is a translation platform, one thing we aim for is to be like a touch point in the cultural conversation. Right? So basically, culturally, Bitcoin is also not seen in a good light, right? So even if you bring all these magnificent educational tools, culturally, Bitcoin is not seen in a good light. So we want to see what else we could do to, make it more normal for people to accept Bitcoin. And this is coming from the point that hip hop, I'm a big hip hop fan, I'm sorry, right? Hip hop was also at some point not seen in a good light culturally, right? And I see in Sao Paulo, there's a lot of graffiti, a lot of people play hip hop music. I don't know if there was a time where it was culturally shunned to actually be a fan of hip hop, but I think Bitcoin is going to follow like a similar path. Yes, you can teach a person how to do graffiti. Yes, you can teach a person how to rap. Yes, you can teach a person how to break dance. But if it's not yet culturally accepted, you're going to have much harder job versus when the city is how it is now and you're just doing a hip-hop show, right? So yeah, I think it's going to be a similar thing with Bitcoin. Can we make it more culturally accepted? And yeah.
Yeah, to close off our discussion, I wanted to say and talk a little bit about the vision that you guys have for the future. You guys mentioned quite a lot the future here, but how do you envision the use of Bitcoin for daily transactions and for as something part of the future over the next 5 to 10 years? And what role will it play in the global economy, seeing what's happening, especially in the last week? I think the last week was big to Bitcoin adoption and Bitcoin in general. What is your points of view on that?
My point of view of Bitcoin in the future is going to be the mainstream, but not the mainstream all the daily. It's going to be layer 2s to help Bitcoin to improve the velocity and help the transactions. And Bitcoin is going to always be the blockchain that I can have the security part from the technology. I have the confidence on Bitcoin, and always going to be my backup for doing the transactions all over the world, abroad the world, and it's going to integrate the payments at the all world. And I think Bitcoin is going to be one day helping educating the next generation, and consequently is going to be the payment of future using layer 2s for daily basis, but using Bitcoin as a backup.
Yeah. In my opinion, in the future, the Bitcoin space and traditional space will be more well connected. So the people will choose if you want to live in a Bitcoin economic system or traditional systems, like you can do payments using Bitcoin with any customers and other customers can be receive reais and bringing Bitcoin automatically. I think the traditional and Bitcoin space will be more well connected.
Yeah, I think depends on where you will be. Right? I think it's going to be very different from for America versus Africa versus Brazil versus Asia. Right? But each country will probably have, or each region will probably have its own unique spin. In America, I think Bitcoin is the new hip hop. You know, we're going to have a president pardoning the more regular stakeholders, starting with Ross on day one, and then probably the samurai devs are also going to get pardoned by Donald Trump. Hopefully, I don't know. But as a Bitcoin developer, I'd actually love to see that because it would help me and other Bitcoin developers sleep easier. From a user perspective, I think in countries where you should use Bitcoin more regularly, where there's capital controls and everything like that, we're going to start seeing that. But we're also going to have to start seeing Bitcoin companies that already offer these services actually flourish more often, you know, and actually grow bigger so that companies that don't offer Bitcoin services actually see that, oh, we're missing out, right? And those guys are able to sustain themselves in a bear market, global bear market, not just the Bitcoin bear market. And yeah, so I think those are the two different things we will see over the next years. But billions more users in different regions. Africa, 1 billion people. I hope to see everyone in Africa spending in Bitcoin over the next 10, 15 years. And yeah, I don't know about the other regions, but I know you guys at Beep are doing wonderful work to make sure that everyone in Brazil does that. As Teco, well, you guys are in Africa, everywhere else in the world. So yeah, I'm happy to see what you guys are doing.
Great. I would like to thank so much you three for this amazing panel. I'm going to tell our audience to go visit the both stands of Truther and BIPA, which are sponsors from the event. And if you guys want to see more of KG tomorrow, we're going to have another panel here talking about his story and talking about how he uses Bitcoin fully on his day-to-day basis in South Africa tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. So thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of the event today and see you guys tomorrow back on this stage.